Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have Anywhere Else. That's the name of the story.
Yes.
Last episode, we had At the Beach as our story. And I said that one was our most recent one because it was had been 7 days posted since we from our recording. Mm-hmm. This one may be our second because this one came out in January 2022. So maybe a month or two has passed since as of this recording. So
the next one's going to be 2 months old and then 3 months old.
Yeah, it's just going to keep getting farther and farther away.
Yeah.
But Anywhere Else is on creepypasta.wiki. It's by Audrey Surprised Cute Catface or 0W0. So Audrey 0W0.
Okay.
I guess I'll dive into the rundown. We get a memory when a young and socially isolated Julia first met her friend Olivia in a sandbox at a playground. Then we are thrust into the present in a world turned to Lovecraftian ruin by some creepy mutative viral apocalypse that turns people into sickly, writhing flesh monsters. Julia, a whole bag of anxiety, depression, and hunger, leaves her hiding place and house to search for Olivia, who hasn't come back for a while from scavenging for food for the two of them. She wanders through the terrifying remnants of her hometown, where the creatures/victims of this plague can be heard and sometimes even seen, followed by, a sand check or two. She makes it to the local convenience store, but only the corpse of its store owner, a bullet in his head, is present. She then heads to the next location Olivia would likely have gone, which is the gas station on the edge of town. All while remembering times before all of this madness and trying to keep the bad thoughts at bay. Then one of the hulking abominations, with her father's head at the top of it, comes shambling and roaring out at her. Julia manages to outrun the creature, and then some, but falls and has yet another, albeit warranted, panic attack before pressing on. Because she has to get to Olivia. She pushes forward after a bit, avoiding any kind of screams and sounds that she hears around along the way, making it to the gas station where she hears Olivia, only to discover that her friend is turning, or at least dying, from the sickness. Julia shares these last moments with Olivia, finally voicing her love for her, and exchanging a kiss before Olivia finally dies. We then cut away again to a scene of some time later. Julia is finally leaving this godforsaken town, all ties cut at this point. Just before she starts off down the road to potential salvation or potential safety, she notices the playground where she first met her friend and crush, Olivia. Remembers those wonderful memories bittersweetly, and then continues on down the road. And that's where the story ends. Yeah, it's a pretty short and sweet one, or bittersweet one, I guess. Like I said, you can check it out on creepypasta.wiki, but I suppose I'm delaying the inevitable with the everyone tolerates the Grand Inquisitions at this point. I've got a couple, so I shall start with this one here. Far too quiet, anyone or anything to be safe. I think it should be far too quiet for anyone or anything to be safe.
Yeah.
Yep, that works.
Okay. And then my next one is another reminder of how filthy her Acne spotless house has become. So Ocne it's OCNE, and I think it's just like a typo of once.
Yeah.
So
I tried my
once spotless-
damnedest to find it. What the hell Acme meant? What the fuck is
Acne? He keeps shouting Acme. No, it's not Acme. It's Acne. He has acne. Oh, Tiny Toon Adventures. But yeah, it's just a simple typo. Also, this is the start of my issues. My one kind of griping issue with the story, and I mean, everyone knows my issue of past, present tense situations. This story has a lot of them, and this is kind of the start of it. With I feel it should be her once spotless house had become, not has become, because this story kind of goes in and out of present and past tense.
Man, I mean, like, I occasionally fight you on this because in this story, it's being told in the moment. Like,
it is, but like but then fucking do it in the moment constantly, like the entire fucking time. I don't know why I'm getting so angry, but it's because it's tense. I'm so tense about tenses. I don't mean to be that angry, like, but like, yeah, I think that if I just want consistency, man.
Yeah.
Like, if it's gonna be present tense, fine. I'm fine with that. But keep it in the present tense. Don't switch over to past tense, because the story then does that too. So,
yeah.
And it also doesn't help that like a lot of these sentences also are like her thoughts. And so like that, like you were probably going to counter me with, like, because it's in the moment, it's in her head, but like, then give us a friggin' distinction between thoughts and like descriptions of what's going on. Yeah. that's my issue. That's my grammar inquisition. That's my inquisitorial campaign. Is the tenses.
At some point, I might do some actual research on this whole tense issue, because like I hate bringing this up occasionally when this sort of thing happens, where it's sort of in the moment, but is that actually legit? Because honestly, from the sounds of it, every damn story should be in past tense, like entirely.
Not every story should be, but there should be like some like. Again, it should either be one or the other, like depending on how you're writing a story. Because stories can be written. I'm not like advocating that like all stories be written in past tense or present tense. Like there can be stories that can be written either or. It's just it gets for me personally, it gets very confusing when a story is swapping out of past and present tense when it shouldn't be. Like that's how I was like taught English, was to separate past and present tenses in stories. Yeah, like, and yeah, if you also, I'm not gonna lie, part of me was like, oh, so you're gonna look it up so you can like try and prove me wrong. But honestly, like if that is something that's not right, like I actually do kind of want to know if have had it wrong this entire time. But like that's how I was fucking like taught English and creative writing, was not to cross the tenses.
And me looking it up isn't to counter you; it's to counter myself to see if I am in the right for saying that.
Sorry, it's to counter myself to see, am I in the right? No, am I in the wrong? Sorry, I get what you're saying though.
Okay.
Like again, to see if you're like to see what is the actual correct way. But like I feel like, again, like based on how I've been taught, like I've said, like no, for the third time. Yeah, like I feel like there needs to be a consistency of tenses. So, but
English is just annoying, because like a couple of sentences ago, one line says she felt an almost deafening silence swallowing her whole. Like, that could also be used as present tense, or would you change it to she's feeling an almost deafening silence? It's like,
no, she feels.
Oh, feels.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you're gonna switch from all the past tense to present tense, then it would be she feels, because it's all in the now. Actually, and my next quote, I believe, is another example of like past tense and present tense switching halfway through a paragraph. So it's like she shivers and tries to think of anything else but that. She has to focus, has to think. has to get out and find Olivia. Find her before the night falls and the worst of those creatures start walking upright. She rubs her dirty face and scratches at her unkempt hair. There was no other option, was there? With a regretful sigh, she gets up, ready to face whatever evil awaits outside. So, yeah, this part of the paragraph suddenly switches from the previous past tense to present tense, like a number of times. So, like, yeah, like we were like in the previous paragraphs and stuff, it was past tense, and then it switches to this. And I think this is because, like, yeah, it's in the moment and stuff. But you can still just have that in past tense and like capture that moment. So, or vice versa. Like, either again, I'm just sort of beating this dead horse, like
tense horse.
Yeah, this very tense horse. I'm trying to like loosen out its tension.
Yeah.
I'm trying to loosen up the rigor mortis.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The
Nice.
tenseness of its. Anyway, yeah, I'll move on to the next one here. So this is separate from tense stuff, but yeah, I'll just move on to this thing. Even if it wasn't, sorry, I had like a weird shiver, something go down my spine.
Okay, fair.
Oh god, I've got the sickness. I'm becoming one.
Oh, he's down with the sickness.
Now, come on down with the sickness.
Oh god. Okay, sorry.
There goes the rest of the recording.
Where's my coffee? Even if it wasn't a minefield of monstrosity, the foul smells and trails of ambiguous fluids would have been too much for her to stand. So I do feel like this sentence needs to be broken up with a comma. So like, even if it wasn't a minefield of monstrosity, comma, the foul smells and trails of ambiguous fluids, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
And then my next one here. Thankfully or unthankfully, her stomach was already painfully empty. So perhaps have an ellipses after thankfully or ... unthankfully. And then maybe a comma after unthankfully. Just to kind of like structure that sentence a little bit better. Also, I don't know if unthankfully is a word, but like I'm tempted to just allow it.
What would you use?
I don't
Or
like
regretfully, or regretfully, or something like that.
or like thankfully or not so thankfully. Maybe like just like add a few things like because I don't think unthankfully like is a compound. Like, I don't know. Like, am I wrong?
Well, unthankful is a word, so
Unthankfully, is that actually a word? Yeah, unthankful is, but so perhaps unthankfully is also a word. I don't know. It is popping up right. Like I don't actually have this in my comments. It's popping up as a spelling error in Google Docs in my Google Docs. So,
Also, before you go on,
yeah,
I have a little bit of stuff with that area as well, including the previous sentence as well, which was keenly listening to the distance wailing and gurgling. I feel like that should be keenly listening to the distant wailing and gurgling.
yeah. You're absolutely right.
Also, this is a string of 4 very short sentences. Like, I'll just read the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Keenly listening to the distance wailing and gurgling, period. The noises of unfathomable suffering, period. It was so nauseating that she would have puked, period. Thankfully or unthankfully, her stomach was already painfully empty. So, like, that could be combined into 2 sentences just by putting a comma in between each one.
Yeah, because it is sort of like it's listing basically a number of atrocities or terrible things that are around her.
Well, yes and no, but like, I'm not saying it all has to be commented out. Just like even half of it, because it would read like this.
No, that's
like keenly
no, that's
listening
fine.
to the distant wailing and gurgling, the noises of unfathomable suffering. It was so nauseating that she would have puked. Thankfully or unthankfully, her stomach was already painfully empty. So I guess actually another comma after unthankfully as well.
Yeah. Thankfully or unthankfully, comma, her stomach. Yeah. No, I wasn't like saying like.
Oh, I know.
Comma
I'm just trying to continue reading. Finish
Sorry,
my
I'm
thought.
sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry.
I'm after
So sorry.
God. I'm not sorry. No one's gonna get that.
Yeah. No one watches Cheech and Chong or South Park.
I don't think it was on South Park. I think it was only in Cheech and Chong.
Oh, I was referencing the BP thing with I'm
Oh.
sorry. Sorry. I'm
Oh.
so sorry.
I was in Cheech and Chong mode.
Yeah, you were Pee Wee Herman from Cheech and Chong.
Yes.
Up in Smoke?
No,
Or
that was in
put you on the spot.
Nice Dreams.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that you want to add to this section?
No.
Okay. Then I'll move on. My next quote is, "No, not now. She can't let her own mind get away from her. She breathed in and breathed out." So, okay, this is me dredging up the I believe dredging up the past tense, present tense stuff with her thoughts.
Mhm.
So yeah, like she is kind of thinking in the moment, and I do appreciate the author does separate them in these instances with breaks. Like there's a lot of like these. The story is sort of formatted in a way that's like very kind of helpful to kind of break up the mindset of this person. It kind of gives the impression that this is sort of like a fragmented mind that is trying to cobble together this her own narrative of reality. With these like separating lines and stuff like that. But again, it's just So this is one, but it's not done all the time. Like there are in the paragraphs and stuff like that. Like there is past tense, present tense sort of switches, but there are good examples in the story of using the past tense versus present tense situation, or when to use the present tense separated from a past tense in the same story. At least I feel. And apparently the next couple are just me being annoyed at past tense versus present tense, because it's just like Julia suddenly wishes she wore anything other than her old rundown sweatpants. And I have, again, past tense, she suddenly wished she wore anything else.
Mhm.
And then the next one is, of course, this assumes what happened here hasn't happened everywhere else. And to that I had like, of course, this assumed whatever happened here hadn't happened everywhere else. Sorry, guys. It's my
Your cross to bear.
axe to
Fine.
grind. Yeah, it's my cross to bear, my axe to grind.
No.
My white whale.
Do it up.
And my next one here, and this is the one that broke me. This is the one where I just kind of gave up, I think, or just like I'm just gonna broadband it. She needed to be strong, to be brave. Olivia needs her. And my comment here is literally, okay, that's it. I'm just going to go on the record. For any further tense issues, this story needs to be fixed. Tense issues, either like past tense or present tense. Like you got to keep them separated. But that's just a personal opinion on this point. So I stopped like reacting to the past and present tense issues.
That's fair.
And my next one here, she looked around front and back of the store. Not only Olivia, but there wasn't even a single edible can of food. So I think this kind of bugged me, like the way this was written. Like not only Olivia, but there wasn't even a single edible can of food. And I'm rereading it a couple of times because I read this again last night, and then now I'm reading this line again. It doesn't bug me as much as when I first took my notes and stuff, but I think it could maybe be tweaked to be like this. Not only no Olivia, but also there wasn't even a single edible can of food. Like just maybe that might be like double negativing it. I don't think that's double negativing it.
Not only was Olivia not there.
Yeah. Because like I kept tripping up over that. It's like not only Olivia, like because I think I kept expecting it as like not only Olivia was there, or I don't know. I kept tripping over this sentence, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
or just like Olivia wasn't there, and neither was a single edible can of food.
Yeah, exactly. Like either your or Mikey's like corrections, I think would help fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And then my last grammar inquisition is it was locked and boarded up. She turned to look for a back entrance when she heard a voice. So this one's harder to pin down in pronunciation, and I noticed it a couple of times in the story of what's wrong here. But the spacing around the periods in certain sentences seem to be off. And it's just a simple. I'm not like calling it out like as a serious issue. It's really just I get it. It's somebody like when they were typing the story, they probably just accidentally hit the space button at the wrong point around the period. So like there's like a space after the last word of a sentence, and then there's a period, and then there's no space between the next word and the period. So
yeah, like on that one, it was locked and boarded up, comma, no space. She turned to look for a back entrance, space, period, no space when she heard a voice.
Exactly.
Well, the first comma is actually a period.
Is it?
Yeah, it is actually. It is a period.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought you had said period, honestly. That's why I was agreeing with you. Yeah.
I blame the autocorrect in my notes because it made like a little squiggly line underneath the entire thing because it squished together. Because I had the center part highlighted, it made it look weird.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the end of my grammar inquisition. So, Mikey, the E stands for evil.
All right. One that I have here is almost always defeated by Julia in those fighter games. She stifled a chuckle and then felt a cold realization at what might have happened to them. So it's missing a period or comma or something there because C is capitalized in the middle of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which would assume a period was meant.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So hell yeah, fighting games.
Yeah. She's really awesome at it.
Apparently.
Or was as a kid.
Then I have a conjunction junction.
All right. And next stop, conjunction junction. Doot, doot.
It was then something blocked her light, casting a shadow over her end of the sandbox. It could have been days, months, or even years since Olivia went out for supplies. It was so nauseating she would have puked and breathed out, and soon saw it. But in the corners of her vision, she still saw bits and pieces of it. Or whatever the hell this actually was. But there he was. It was mid-afternoon by this point, and she wasn't even halfway there. It was towering above, and she ran and ran. It was locked and boarded up. It was her. But before she went off into the coming night, she looked leftward. Finn.
I was really hoping there was going to be like, it's like, because he kept referencing like the its and ands and like stuff kept referencing like this thing that was like she kept seeing out of the corner of her eye or like looking up into and like couldn't identify it. I kept hoping there's going to be something funny. It's like it was the gas station. Like that has been trailing her this entire time across her entire life.
Well, it did say it was her.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I did say that. Yeah.
So maybe it was another Julia.
Oh God, It Follows all over. It's the game, or it's the creature from It Follows. It just assumes the form that will either lure you in or repulse you.
Yep. And considering she puked and breathed out, probably repulsed.
Yes, probably. Honestly, okay. So the one thing, like, not to steal gamers' thunder here,
You can just do it. I don't care.
but the reason why Mikey does this is because there's always better words to use at the beginning of sentences, like rather than its, ends, or buts. However, I'm going to fight you guys on this one because there's moments in this story where I actually feel that they are dramatically appropriate. Like specifically like when she's and breathe out, and so like because those are gapped apart because they is trying to create a dynamic narrative by separating each line to sort of get a point across.
Yeah, that stuff is basically, it might as well be dialogue because like it's her thinking this in her head.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so I mean, like in other stories, yeah, like I would agree with you guys. Like sometimes ifs, ands, or buts are unnecessary. Like there's better words to use at the beginning of a sentence. In this case, though, I'm going to be a lot more lenient with it because of the way the formatting of the story is.
Well, just in regards to the like thought processes, not the actual paragraphs, which is where most of that its story came from.
Yeah, that's true. Hence why I said I was going to be a little bit more lenient. Yeah. Not completely lenient. Like, I'm not just like, throw that out the window.
Gotcha.
But, yeah. And that's the end of your stuff, Mikey?
Yep.
All right. Gamer.
Okay. So when you started yours, you said you had a couple. I have a couple dozen. So here we go.
Oh, God.
I literally have over 24 of them. So anyways,
Okay.
so right off the get-go, the formatting on the intro, when I first started reading it, I'm like, I don't know why it's like triple or maybe even quadruple spaced. I didn't really understand why. Reading through it, it's like, okay, that's thoughts, but technically the whole thing is thoughts. So it's just kind of confusing to me as to why it's sectioned out like that.
Okay.
Like I get the in the most of the story where it's using it as an alternative to italics. Look at that. Because it's thoughts, but there's nothing around the first intro bit to like explain what's going on.
Well, because you have to keep reading, gamer.
Yeah, but it also messed up my entire reading because there's no context.
I mean, like I respect your opinion,
but you're gonna substitute your own.
But 100%. I'm like, I'm wondering. I think part of this is a you problem, not a problem of the writing.
My brain no work, no good.
And you know what? I'm not trying to say that. Yeah, you're stupid for thinking this. Like honestly, like again, different opinions and different ways people process stories and stuff like that. But yeah, so like I will agree with you on part of it, but at the same time, it is, and this is also just your opinion. So
yeah, well, when you started doing your rundown, as soon as you started, I was like, oh no, because like I immediately fucked shit up.
Oh no!
Because when I read this, there's no context. I'm like, okay, I guess this is just an like a omniscient narrator or whatever the fuck saying this. I'm like, okay, I guess the spaced out stuff is just that, and then it cuts to a paragraph of just a narrator talking about things, like not like it's also third person, and then it goes to thoughts. And then I'm like, okay, why is this part thoughts and the first part isn't thoughts? But when the way you described it, the first part is thoughts because it's Julia remembering Olivia.
Yeah,
I didn't.
And like, honest, and like, yeah, because I when it, by about like I think about halfway through, I was like oh no, by the end when she's like reminiscing and stuff like. Oh, so that, or no, when she was remembering like her, like the time when she was like at the arcade and stuff, I was like, so I'm guessing like that's when I guessed, and when I like, and it's really just kind of contextual assumption, I guess. That's when I came to the conclusion that the thing I just read above was probably a flashback.
Okay, but what is the context of all this? Because, for example, okay, basically what happens?
Yeah,
she gets made fun of. The bully stays there, laughing in her face. And then something blocks her light. She looks up at another person standing over her, the sun giving them a heavenly glow. It was as if she was an angel. Is she referring to her fucking self as an angel?
No, not at all.
And who?
Olivia. It mentions right at the end her, like, okay, hang on.
I thought Olivia was the kid being made fun of.
No, Julia is the main character of the story. And she's having the flashback of her being isolated as a kid, and then this like
she's
that whole
referring to herself as no one wanted to play with her. Her as in herself.
No, okay.
Why wouldn't it be?
Okay, no one wanted
to.
to. Olivia. So the first bit here, like that we get, is a flashback from when Julia first met Olivia, because Olivia was the only kid who came to like play with her and wasn't like mean to her, and that's how like their friendship started.
Okay.
And it even says, and the context you get from that is that it is near the end where she is talking about Olivia as her angel.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But the very first line is Julia saying no one wanted to play with her. She's talking about herself, though. Why would you use that?
Yeah. No one wanted to play. What?
It would be no one wanted to play with me. Because she is the one who's being made fun of. And then Olivia comes as her angel.
It's because the story is being kind of done in a third person, not a first person
this is a thought,
perspective.
Because it's the spaced out stuff. It's a memory.
It's a thought, but it's still a thought, but it's in third person.
Do you remember back to remember the good old days when we were in Meat Space and like and Gamer flipped over top of the couch and died? That was great. Like,
I do.
Remember that
fun.
way? Should I be thinking that way, referring to myself as my name instead of just me? That's my whole point here, and that's why this confused the hell out of me, and it made me think that it was just a third-person narrator talking about this.
Yeah, I know. I get you. We're gonna have to agree to disagree, because I'm fine with it because it's telling it almost like a cinematic way, but you're gonna be pissed off about it because it's not done in a way that makes sense to you.
It's not done in a way that makes sense to anyone.
No, you're wrong, because it makes sense to me.
You're wrong.
Thanks. I guess I'll just leave now. Bye.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Mikey?
I think the problem is that basically it's focusing on the girl in the sandbox, and then suddenly there's another person standing over the girl in the sandbox,
mm-hmm.
and the sun gave them a heavenly glow, but then it's them. It doesn't specify that that's another she. So the next sentence is as if she was an angel.
Mm-hmm.
So that going back, it's like, well, we're still talking about the girl in the sandbox. So the girl in the sandbox is the angel.
No.
The one that's looming over the girl in the sandbox is the angel.
Okay. So
do you see why I'm bringing this
I
up?
understand.
It's confusing.
I understand your confusion. I had no confusion because I just went with the flow and waited till the story told me what the context was to that first part.
There's my advice. Making me go back and using a fucking eraser on what I just built in my head. It should just flow. I shouldn't have to go back.
I disagree, but but you are in your right to have that opinion, but I disagree with it. Like I the only reason I don't want to drag this on because like we're never going to agree because we have very different opinions on how stories are being told, how stories be told.
Why don't you understand?
I understand your confusion. I just don't I don't care. I have a different, like, I view it differently than you, like, and we've never been able to like find a middle ground. We found middle grounds in the past, but like, it's just like I like in media res bullshit, and like when a story plays around with how it's telling a story, like, and like how it's making its how it's telling its viewpoints and stuff like that, and you just want a straightforward story.
Okay, well, let me say this: would you have a problem with it reading like this? No one wanted to play with me. After a few pitiful attempts to chat up some of the other kids, they all quietly walked off, refusing to even look at me. If they swapped all the hers in regards to God, who even is this? It's Julia. If they swapped all the her Julias to me's, would you have a problem with that?
I wouldn't have a problem with it, but I don't have a problem with the other way, like the way it is written now.
What I'm saying is,
I would not have a. Yeah, I understand. Yeah,
it would make it a lot more clearer if it was all me's. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Cool. I'll move on.
Okay.
Number 1 out of 24 done. Okay. Number 2. It's fine. That's probably the only one that we're gonna have a huge argument on.
I really hope so. Yeah. I'm sorry we have different views on the world, man.
Almost like we're different people. That's fine.
I know. Yeah, that really, honestly, it should be our motto at this point.
It is.
It's almost like we're different people.
Yeah. Put it on the
But I
shirt,
mean, like, the world would be boring without it. So,
I suppose. Anyways, after a few pitiful attempts to chat up some... Oh, jeez, I just talked about this. Regardless. I'm fine. After a few pitiful attempts to chat up some of the other kids, they all... Well, actually, I have to read it a specific way. Hang on. After a few pitiful attempts to chat up some of the other kids, they all quietly walked off, refusing to even look at her. I feel like there should be a comma in there.
yeah, that I agree with, yeah.
After a few pitiful attempts to chat up some of the other kids, comma, they all quietly walked off. Period or comma, refusing to even look at her. Actually, no, that should be comma, because otherwise there'd be a tiny little sentence at the end.
And that's your other vice.
Yeah, that's another
is a little period. Yeah. You know what really grinds my... Honestly, that should be the new, grammar acquisition thing. You know what really grinds my gears?
Tense things.
Shorts, and then, gamer, short sentences. And things that have different viewpoints than a straightforward linear path.
Having to go back over things.
Ah, the audacity!
How dare you?
How dare you creatively interesting and artistic with your writing? What is this? Poetry?
Anyways.
God. Okay, sorry.
I don't remember if Mikey had this in his stuff, but there's a front with. Did you do a front with?
No.
Okay.
Ding!
With the only exception being one boy who laughed in her face. It is in the thought thing, I guess, but at the time I didn't know it was a memory or a thought, so I thought it was normal writing.
Honestly, I was about to say, I almost slipped and said I'm gonna fight you on this. But no, honestly, I'm with you on this. That it could just read the only exception being one boy who laughed in her face.
It's shorter and more to the point.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. We can. Yay!
Yay!
Okay. And then here's another pacing issue in regards to a comma.
Ding!
Feeling more alone than ever, she started working on building a sandcastle. So it probably should be feeling more alone than ever, she started working on the sandcastle.
Mm-hmm.
Comma in there.
Agreed.
Then, where is this one? Actually, I need to look this up. Is it still? Yeah, it's still a start. Jesus Christ. Okay. So again, this is in the quote unquote thoughts.
Ding.
In between, but it's jumping down 3 spaces or 3 lines, even though it's talking about the exact same thing, and I feel like it could just be combined. And it's not like they're not combining any of these lines anyways, because they do later on and previously. Either way, doing her best to keep her emotions away. A couple of tears still fell down despite her best efforts. Where that could just be combined to doing her best to keep her emotions away. A couple of tears still fell down despite her best efforts. Just combine them with a comma.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
Okay. Then moving on slightly.
Ding.
The sun gave them a heaven. This is the same sort of thing. Another combine.
Okay,
the sun gave them a heavenly glow. Period. As if she was an angel. Period.
That one, personally, I would keep it the same because it feels more dramatic for the ending of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand why you'd want to combine it.
It's also just the front as is kind of weird, and I would say switch it to it was as if, but that's front if. So
yeah, I think as if is fine. Honestly, for this again, it's that issue of it's a thought process or it's a thought flashback kind of thing. So yeah.
But again, a couple lines up, there's a comma in between. It's not like these are all short sentences. They're not all meant to be all short sentences. They're combined and even multi-sentences on one line. So why... I understand it's for dramatic effect, and I agree with you. I'm not going to fight you on this.
Okay.
Yeah. In my opinion, comma it out, put it together. Moving
all
on.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Here's another combination of 2 tiny sentences.
Ding!
The midday sun creaked through the boarded windows, period. Bits of dust and dirt floating around in its presence. I would just combine that to the midday sun creaked in through boarded windows with bits of dust and dirt floating around in its presence.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Ding! Ding!
So then, when it gets to the second instance of the spaced out stuff, that's when my whole confusion set in about what this even means, because I didn't think the previous stuff was thoughts, but we already talked about that. So I'll just move on from that.
Okay. Ding!
Okay, there's a missing space here. She rubs her dirty face and scratches her unkempt hair, period, no space. There was no, and then blah, 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 blah. So there needs to be a space after unkempt hair.
Yes. Ding!
Then there's, and this part, I feel like it should have broke to the next paragraph earlier, because it's talking about how she stayed off the main roads and everything, and it was all shitty, it's gross here. And then soon she saw some buildings in the distance, not the familiar sight of the border, blah, 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 blah. And then it cuts down to the next paragraph talking about the buildings in the distance. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it should break at the buildings.
Yeah.
So it'd be like there were, and so the previous paragraph would end with, there was no getting used to the horrors like this, which is also a dramatic way to end a paragraph.
Agreed.
And then paragraph break to soon she saw buildings in the distance, blah, 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 and then start talking about the buildings because you're going there next.
Yeah. No, I'm down for that.
Okay.
Ding.
Oh, and this is sort of in regards to the actually this actually gets fixed with my previous thought, because I said that after soon she saw the buildings, it should all be clicked into the next paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
Because the end of that paragraph is she had finally reached the town square, and then the start of the next paragraph is the closest place for supplies and most likely place for Olivia to be. So it's talking about specifically the town square, even though it's not even in the same paragraph as it. But with my previous correction, it fixes it, so moving on. Here's another combination of tiny words.
Ding!
The tiny sentences. The general store was down the road was her best bet, period. Only place nearby that had a focus on groceries, period. Combine them, put a comma, moving on.
Ding!
She thinks about what if space Olivia was trapped in the general store like they once were. So there's a double space there. There only needs to be one. Moving on.
Ding!
Another combination. Here we go. Love my combos.
Well, you are a gamer, so.
I know. I should count and see how big my combo is, actually, now that I think about it. I'll do that after. She kept walking for a few minutes until she smelled it, period. And soon she saw it, period. Combine, comma, move on.
Ding! Comma or ellipses?
Yes, ellipses. I do like ellipses.
Yeah.
I prefer
until you
them.
don't.
Yes, but for dramatic effect, sparingly, I do like ellipses. They're
That's
very
fair.
nice. And there's a misplaced space here. She had to get away from this horror space, period, no space. She desperately blah, 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 blah. So period and then space. Again, easy.
The thing I mentioned earlier, like, but broad stroked, you're going in fine detail and just pick away, which is fine.
Yeah, I'm grabbing all of them. So if they want to
Yeah.
use my grammar in yellow to find all of the grammar issues, by all means.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Moving on.
Ding!
Going through the front door she took in the chaos around her. So the way I read that first was going through the front door that she took, like she took the front door.
Just ripped it off its hinges, using it as a shield.
Yes, in the chaos around her, though, which was weird. So, yeah, I feel like that just needs a comma. Also, there was no capital at the start of that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
It was just lowercase going. Unless I clipped that incorrectly. Maybe I didn't clip the whole thing. Cool. Then there's a double space here.
Ding!
There's no sign of her to be found here, and now that the general, what does that even mean? Oh, that's ellipses. Never mind. The double space is in between sign and of, so there was no sign double space of her.
Ding!
And this one's just a pacing issue. Just needs a comma to fix it. She wished she had stayed inside her house, for even starving to death seemed desirable compared to this, which would be corrected to she wished she had just stayed inside her house, for even starving to death seemed desirable compared to this.
Yes.
I had to read that 2 or 3 times to understand where the break was meant to be.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And here's a quick list of extra spaces and weird spots.
Ding!
This was the only place left, double space, where she could have gone. Is that a period? Yeah, it's a period. Then no space. The site of the long since. Blah 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 blah. We talked about the locked and boarded one. Is that the entire sentence? Just she said. My God, it is. Oh, because like I don't have much time left is in quotes, and then capital she said period.
No, yeah, that may.
Shouldn't it just be lowercase?
Or it should be she said, comma, her throat sounds dry and rotting. Period.
No, but she didn't say that her throat sounds dry and rotting. She said with her throat sounding. That if it's sounding, then it's present tense and should be past.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going over that again. Also, I was using comma in kind of like as a replacement for with, because sometimes you can do that. Sometimes you can get away with that.
Okay.
Ding.
Despite years gone by and double space, everything that's happened is changed so little. That is the last of my spaces, and that is the last of my grammar.
Okay.
Now to count up my combo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7-hit combo, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, show me your moves. All right. So we'll move on to actual thoughts then. now that the grammar in yellow is done.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start with this one. This quote here. The putrid sight will haunt her until her final day. She looked down at her shoes and kept walking, fighting the macabre urge to look directly at the biohazards. But in the corners of her vision, she still saw bits and pieces of it, throbbing, bloodied bits of pink flesh, sometimes rotten, always seemingly alive, almost always surrounded by a weird array of bodily fluid, misshapen bones, and even the occasional blinking eye. So, reading this story, I was like, kind of like, the story was giving me, like, through the monsters and victims of this apocalypse, I was kind of getting this, like, so you're trapped in the Cronenberg apocalypse, where, like, people have just mutated into Shoggoths. Like, just giant flesh masses, or, like, twisted, like, mutilated bodies that are still alive. And I mean, I've literally written a game scenario where a whole town gets caught or catches Shoggoth flu. So this was giving me similar vibes to that.
Nice.
Gamer, you were in that game. Where you guys you went to a ghost town, a seemingly ghost town, like where there's like nobody around anymore, and there's like signs of some kind of illness that had afflicted the entire town. And
the Frontiersman?
Yeah, that was in the Frontiersman game.
Yeah.
Which you can check out at One Less Die at some point in the future, or now.
What a natural...
Whenever you're listening to this. Yeah. Our sister podcast, One Less Die, a Shadowrun and gaming actual play podcast. Plug. Also, this was giving me vibes of The Thing by John Carpenter. Like, this is what happens if The Thing from The Thing by John Carpenter ever escaped Antarctica and made it to warmer continents.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, I imagine like that's probably what will happen. And then we get to this next one here. She remembered the early days of the viral infection, or whatever the hell it actually was, before the sounds of nightly screaming kept her up at night. Way back when everything operated more in line with a nasty strand of flu, CDC tent clinics, extra police officers, and closed down schools. So I know that some of my constituents here may not like the in media res style that this story is proposing, and I've already covered it in the Grammar Inquisition. We've already had this argument. Where and the reason I'm bringing up media res style in the story is because like where you have to read about halfway through a story before we get relevant straight answers as to what the hell is going on in the setting. And honestly, from my point of view, I really dug it. Like, I really liked how the story shows the setting rather than just straight up telling us at the beginning.
I agree.
Like, we kind of... What?
I agree.
I don't know how to take this. This has never happened before, except for all the times it's happened before.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, cool. All right, well, I really dug it. So, and I'm glad that you do too. Yeah. but yeah, I really liked like how we like through reading the story, we get that journey and like kind of see the world and like get the world like kind of described to us through Julia as she's wandering through this horrible mess. And yeah, I even comment, and my next comment thing on this is like, yeah, it did kind of throw me off at the beginning, like what was happening, but then I figured out about halfway through that it was probably a flashback memory from when Julia first met Olivia. And for me, and while I was reading the story, I was honestly just like really enjoying that bit of mystery of like what's going on. I like, and the story as long as the story does reveal what happened, because like otherwise, like if the story hadn't even given you like clues, like especially by the end, it says like we get hints as to who the angel was, because it like says when Julia finally finds Olivia again and like finds her like in the state that she's in. I actually saw a sentence that would work perfectly for my example here. Of course, I can't find it now.
I'm assuming near the end where they meet up.
It's close. Here it is. I found it. Yeah, so this is when she like gets to the gas station. She ran up to the front doors. It was locked and boarded up. She turned to look for a back entrance when she heard a voice, the voice of her angel. And then it's Olivia saying hello. And then near the end of it, it also uses the angel analog for Olivia, like her angel and stuff like that, with an angel giving its last blessing. So yeah, like that's about when I was like, oh, so that's what the intro bit was. It was basically when Julia first met her love interest / crush / best friend Olivia, because she referred to her in that original story, like when they first met, that she thought it resembled an angel.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that again, I really dug that. And again, we've had a conversation earlier as to why some people wouldn't care for that.
I'm keeping my lips zipped.
Okay. Also, I think it'll be a while before I stop groaning, and like not exactly in a bad way, but just on a personal level, at a story that happens to use pandemic-like scenarios as part of its plot, narrative, and setting.
Especially when made recently.
Yeah, you know what?
Like, I get it. You're using the influence of, shit's fucked up. Like,
yeah, I totally 100% get it, because like legitimately, that's why a lot of like sci-fi stories and horror stories get written as like a way of coping, a way of dealing with current day scenarios or current day situations. So like 100% get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just as soon as like the CDC stuff started popping up and like the other things, I was like, I did catch myself groaning. It's like, another pandemic story. It's never ending. But that's not on the story. That's a personal thing that I wanted to bring up, because like again, we're trapped in this hellscape of endless pandemic and global crises.
Yeah, I think it's just we're drawing the parallels. Because if it wasn't going on, we'd be like, okay, it's a creepy story about an infection. Cool. Like, we've read those before. They're cool. They're fun. Okay. It's not a problem.
Yeah, like, perfect example of that. A couple of years ago, before the pandemics happened, there was a movie that starred Chris Pine called Carrier. And it was all about basically COVID. It was legitimately the same fucking scenario as COVID.
Oh damn!
Except it went a lot worse, like a darker scenario in that it like we couldn't find a way to cure it, or even like treat it in any kind of way. So people were just dropping in the millions.
It's just Black Death all over again.
Yeah, but like the way that movie like tells how the flu got started was like creepily close to how COVID got started.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, yeah, I remember like watching it, or I never actually watched it, but I've watched like a review of it and stuff like that recently, and I was like, yeah, that movie was kind of prophetic in a way. But I digress. Yeah, like just it happens when like a story that you're reading happens to happen, or you happen to be reading it around the same time as a similar situation is happening in the real world. So, But I digress. Moving on. It was mid-afternoon by this point. No, it was mid-afternoon by this point, and she wasn't even halfway there. And I have to get this joke out. Well, she's certainly not living on a prayer.
Yeah, there it is.
Or maybe she is. Sorry, I had that stuck in my head as an earworm. Thank you, Bon Jovi. There was another earworm that happened it's like she ran away. She ran so far away. And she ran all night and day. Couldn't get away. So yeah, and like, not to make light of a fictional character's plight of like having to deal with like running away from her mutilated corpse father. But have to get in some gallows humor here and there.
Yes.
And then my next one is actually, I guess that's actually a decent segue to the next one, because it's about the description of the creature, of the big boss monster that we, or the big monster that we see in the story. The clock was ticking and she had to hurry. This thought persisted until she heard a disgustingly familiar sound, a large bestial roar. She looked behind her and her fears were confirmed. There it was, a living and walking nightmare. It was towering above, taller than a man on stilts, fatter than 100 hogs, and with far too many legs. There stood this conglomerate of oozing bodies, all fused together into an ungodly mass, all aware, all awake, all feeling every bit of their predicament, faces frozen in agony and silent screams. And so, at this point, like, we hadn't really gotten, like, again, it would kind of been mentioned off, like, kind of in sort of like the same kind of thing that like Lovecraft does, where it's like in vagaries and stuff as to what was going on, of what these creatures, what people had mutated into. But then we get this where it's just like, oh, so it straight up is a Shoggoth, or the Ganglia aberrant from the Red Market's tabletop RPG, or any number of mashed together walking and crawling human flesh piles that pop culture and fiction have created. And it was at that,
like the Trapper Keeper episode.
Yeah, exactly. Or that, or like the necromorph biomasses in Dead Space, or the Thing. It's like, you know, now that I think about it, that monster concept gets around. Pun intended.
Well, there's a reason. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, there is a reason. Like, it is an effective monster, or effective monster design. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is I really enjoyed the description of this creature. Like, taller than a man on stilts, fatter than 100 hogs, with far too many legs. A conglomerate of oozing bodies fused together with ungodly mass, and they're all aware. They're screaming silently. Like, I just really dug that description of this abomination.
So the description said that the faces are frozen in agony, so they're not like actively making mouth gestures.
No,
like,
but the creature itself, like the thing as a whole, is letting out this weird roaring sound.
Yes.
Which is also kind of terrifying, because it's like, where's it coming from? If these unless they are just never ending, like they're just never stopping, it's just frozen, like their mouths are just wide open constantly.
If all of the like slave bodies are frozen, maybe the main like father head works normally.
Or even more weird and grotesquely, or like mechanically, in like biomechanically, all the open mouths that are screaming, they're basically acting like the pipes of an organ.
Oh yeah.
So like they're basically amplifying the sounds even more.
Mm-hmm.
That's ugh.
Muy no bueno.
Yes. And then onto my next one here. She curled up into a ball. She wished she had just stayed inside her house, for even starving to death seemed desirable compared to this. She wished she was home and that none of this had happened. You could say, this is me talking, you could say she wished she was anywhere else. Yeah! Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. I think I had an inkling as to why this title, why the story was titled as such, with the context of the story. And then by the end, I also like really dug the ending part, like the way it like dropped it. But yeah, that was just the comment to that, is like, yeah. Next one here. She got up and kept moving, not even stopping for a moment when she heard a woman scream for help in the distance. Given the animalistic howling that accompanied the screaming, there was nothing she likely could have done for her anyway. I mean, that might have been Olivia. Just saying, Julia.
You would know.
Yeah, I guess like she might have that's not Olivia's scream. I've heard Olivia's scream.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then my next one here, the weariness in that voice could be felt even by a common housefly. It was her. Julia had finally found her. In a bout of surprise strength, she burst down the door with nothing but brute force. The sight she took in broke her. Julia. She could tell right away that Olivia was long for this world. She could tell right then that Olivia wasn't long for this world. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her skin was mostly deadly pale, but with a strange red tint spreading across her. The same one she saw on her dad all those months ago. And to this, I was like, yeah, as this story was going, I kind of saw this like tragedy coming. I hoped it would end with a happy ending, but nay, is the nature of horror. Not everything has a happy ending. Nothing ever really happens the way you want it to in a horror story.
Mm.
And again, like I'm not saying that anything. Again, not a bad thing because again, this is the nature of this is a creepypasta we're reading, not some like hopeful apocalypse or like post-apocalypse story. But yeah, I digress. Move on to the next one here. The setting sun illuminated the world in a bath of orange as Julia made her way out of town. And this is me talking, off to potentially spread the viral infection to others, or mutate sometime later. I mean, don't get me wrong, loved that last heartfelt moment between Julia and Olivia. Like, I actually really liked how like the sort of super tragic but also bittersweetness of that moment and scene. But probably like moving away from like the sentimental value and like the romanticism of it, probably not the smartest move for Julia, given what was hinted at earlier when like with like particles from these things, like how she was like trying to like not breathe in the same air as some of the creatures that were around her and such. But then again, we do crazy things when we're in love. So
yeah,
it's again, and again, that might also kind of hint like this whole thing, like her going off into the town or like going away from town and like leaving and stuff, may not necessarily be like it's sort of treated like, yeah, she's moved on. She's learning to keep going, even though like she's lost so much. That almost kind of has a falsehood to it. If you think deeper on the story, it's like, well, she's may or may not have contracted whatever this was from coming into contact with Olivia in her last moments with her. But so there's it again, furthering the darkness of the story. Make it even further like, oh yeah, Julia made it out of town about like maybe a couple of kilometers and then succumbed to the illness herself. Or, went to another town and found that it has this disease, this mutation has spread across the world and is now like truly an apocalypse scenario. But enough about the sadness and like the darker stuff. Let's go into something lighthearted. So the next quote here I have. But before she went off into the coming night, she looked leftward. There it was. Left town. Sorry. Old jokes die hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, like as soon as like looked left. Oh, so the playground was in Left Town all this time.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Also, regarding the photo that's in the story, we've had it in the past. Like, we've commented in like last few episodes about like pictures that like and where they should be positioned in a creepypasta, like to like for the best effect to best sort of like aid the writing and stuff. And I honestly feel that first off, the photo is perfect for like this last scene because it's as if the writer used this photo and described the photo for that last bit with like the orange bathed sunset as she's walking out of town. Then she looks left and sees the old playground that she first met her angel at. And then pushed back the tears and memories and continued forward. And then after the last line's been said anywhere else, we get a photo of that playground. So we have the additional like kind of backing of the description that was in the story of this bittersweet nostalgic photo.
Yep. And it works
like,
way better at the end than it would at the start. Like how most
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, abso-fucking-lutely. And and with that, my last actual thought here is speaking of the park, the park from memories past, including the playground from where she first met Olivia. Despite years gone by and everything that's happened, it has changed so little. She held in her tears of nostalgia and walked off onto the road to somewhere else. Anywhere else. Damn, that's a good ending. That's it. Like that was it wasn't a happy ending, but that was a satisfying ending. Like it was bittersweet. There's a glimmer of hope potentially on the surface that like she's lost so much, but she's going to push forward and keep going because that's what Olivia would have wanted her to do and such. And then if you think about it a little bit darker and like deeper, she's just carrying the virus potentially further, or even like going to mutate later on down the road because she's come into contact with an infected.
Yeah.
So it's got kind of again. What?
Kissed one as well.
That's what I meant. That's
not even
that's,
just like in the area, like direct contact.
Yeah, no, like they were intimate with each other. So like like they and yeah, like that's sort of the bittersweetness of it, and that for me it was really satisfying for an ending. So yeah, that's my actual thoughts. Mikey, the E stands for evil. Your actual thoughts?
Well, I'll start with a continuation of your ending thoughts. So there's no actual time given between when she met Olivia and when she starts going down the road. So the last paragraph, she may already be a monster.
Oh shit. Fuck.
And if you noticed earlier in the story, she made note of staying off of roads and such because...
Oh shit. Oh fuck!
And
so
like
she's
the
just...
main monster was chasing her down, trying to like absorb her, but she's just like a smaller monster.
Yeah,
has
so
still
it's
some
like
of her own like her mind still.
We don't ever get a description of her,
Nope.
and especially at the end of the story. It's like, holy shit! God damn it, Mikey! You made it better. I mean, you made it worse, but you made it so much better.
Worse in a better way.
Yes, exactly. Worst in the best way.
Mm-hmm.
God bless you. What God? Well, y'all know.
Who's y'all know?
It's a slang for Ugolinek. The actually, I don't want not Ugolinek.
Okay.
Cthulhu. That's what I was referencing.
Okay, sure.
God damn it, Mikey.
Yeah.
And I'm done.
It's gonna mic drop here.
Yeah, that would have been a superb mic drop. But I assume you have more.
Yes. Well, I'll mention this quote again. Throbbing, bloodied bits of pink flesh, sometimes rotten, always seemingly alive, almost always surrounded by a weird array of bodily fluid, misshapen bones, and even the occasional blinking eye. So personally, I got Dogscape vibes.
Oh god, this is how it starts.
Or potentially the entity formerly known as Guam.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Again, like weird, creepy, like flesh pile biomasses is a very common monster in today's like horror culture.
Mm.
But it's just so damn effective.
It is, because it's like it's powered and made up of your friends. Like
Exactly. It's got the visceral angle of like the gore and like the descriptors and stuff like that, but then it's also got the psychological horror aspect of like that was your family.
yeah,
like 2 weeks ago.
There's Bill right there. I can see his face.
There's your son.
Yeah.
like in there. like he's calling to you. What do you do? like roll sand. Roll sand to not join your family. and all hail the new flesh. But yeah, no, 100%. Sorry.
All right. And my next quote here is again another repeat. Taller than a man on stilts, fatter than 100 hogs, and with far too many legs. So, to me, fatter than 100 hogs is not a valid width. Like, are we talking the combined fat of 100 hogs, or just bigger than 100 normal-sized hogs? Or which hogs are they using for reference? Are they using regular hogs, motorcycles, or even Hogzilla?
So like I sort of imagine like when you say like larger than 100 hogs, I was kind of imagining it honestly width wise, and I was kind of like picturing like a stampede of hogs. It's just like a giant like a horde of hogs. What is a grouping of hogs?
I saw it as like you take 100 hogs, you squish them into a ball. That is the amount of meat that is used to create this creature.
Yeah, that's probably more accurate, honestly. Hang on, now I'm really damn curious what a horde of hogs or what a group of hogs is called. Oh, okay, that's actually pretty. So a group of pigs is called a drift or a drove. A group of young pigs is called a litter. A group of hogs is called a passel or a team, and a group of swine is called a sounder.
So weird.
I love animal group names so much.
Stupidly awesome.
Yeah. So a team of hogs mashed together. A team of 100 hogs, or a passel of 100 hogs, just mashed together to form the biomass that you need.
Mm-hmm.
It's swine flu.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, man. I hate that I'm about to say this. That should be a new group name for swine, is a flu of swine.
Wow.
a little too, maybe not very sensitive.
A little too on the
given,
nose there.
Yeah, given current situations.
Mm-hmm.
But continue, Mikey.
All right, so that's into my actual thoughts.
Oh, okay. All right then. Well, damn you, but also bless you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Gamer, what do you got?
Not too many, thankfully. Or unthankfully, haha.
But
All back. So yeah, first note I took is just hell yeah, page breaks. I appreciate page breaks, although I don't really know why page breaks are necessary in this. To be honest, because it's all happening in one day, sort of thing, you know.
I think some of the page breaks are good because it's like there is it helps break up the because time is passing between some of these, like a lot of the, actually almost all these scenes are have time pass. So it's not necessarily days, but it's like maybe hours or even like even like hours.
Yeah.
Wait, did I say hours
No,
before? Okay,
could be hours or maybe hours even.
Hours or even like dramatic minutes, basically.
Yeah. Either way, I do like page breaks.
Yep. Okay.
Then she's walking amongst the biohazard stuff, saying that she's like covering her mouth and nose because she doesn't want to breathe any of this in. And then pretty soon after that, she says she moved her hands from her nose to her ears just in case, those poor people, and now she was infected. Like,
I mean, it's clear from the get-go that she's not not entirely like stable because of the world she lives in right now, and also because of personal issues. So, yeah.
Then she's talking about the general store. Says this place somehow got even more run down than when this place somehow got even more run down than when this all first started. To me, I'm like, what do you mean somehow? Like, of course this would be worse for wear after like a apocalyptic event has happened. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's
a surprise that it's worse.
Yeah,
maybe it's like it was already a shit, like a crappy establishment. Like it was already falling apart. So like, wow, I'm surprised it got worse. You know, like I didn't think it could get any worse than this.
Oh, it's completely gutted and empty. I guess it's actually even worse than what it was like back before all this happened.
Mm-hmm. If it was that horrible, I'm surprised it stayed in business though, and people actually went there if it was that disheveled.
Well, it does mention like maybe it's because like again like the guy that ran the place. I think his name's Louis.
Yeah,
was like he's a nice guy and everything, but he was terrible at business. Like didn't gauge his prices at all when like the emergencies were happening. So like people just took advantage of him.
It doesn't mean that the place was like covered in dirt with like broken windows and everything. It wasn't described one way or another. I assumed it was a nice, clean establishment with a nice man that owns it.
Yeah, he just probably couldn't. I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm not trying to besmirch the deads, the dead of the fictional dead, and yeah, I don't know. I kind of get where she's coming from with that sentence because like it was. There is it is a common phrase in certain certain apocalypse stories. Like, wow, this place was somehow got shittier. It's just like, or it's like like that's a common line in stories and stuff.
Yeah,
to reference like ruination and such. So,
yeah, I guess it sounds like it's a freaking grammar thing. I guess the wording that I would have preferred personally was I didn't think that this place could look worse. But here we are, you know.
Yeah,
like
fair.
Either way, I was fine with it. I was just kind of confused.
Yeah. Also, ding.
And then
you got an 8 times combo.
Yeah. And then my last one here is kind of what sort of broke the story for me, unfortunately.
No.
So
all right, let's hear it.
Because of the shenanigans at the start that I will not open up, but I kind of have to just peek into a little bit.
Gotta check the wound, see if it's healing. Oh, it's scabbed over a little bit.
It's fine. So
put that Band-Aid back.
So the intro happens, and they're kids, and they meet and all that, and then it moves on, saying that like it talks about some Olivia person and Julia, and Julia's sitting with her knees to her chest, and shitty sounds outside. To this point, and to about 90% through this story, I was under the impression that Julia was a child.
Okay.
Because it's talking about children at the start, and then it doesn't specifically say that they're of age until it gets to quite later on. So for most of the story, I was just imagining a child wandering around a fucking post-apocalyptic hellscape trying to survive. And I say child, I don't mean like a baby or a toddler. I'm thinking like
a 5-year-old.
No, I'm thinking. Well, it was hard to say because like she kind of aged as the story went on. Because I'm like, this can't be someone who was playing in the sandbox. Like maybe we're up to like grade 8 or something. I don't know.
God, that's like actually I like that's not what's happening in the story, but I like that idea of like an apocalypse is like very Carcosa origin, maybe, where like the kid, like the survivor was a kid at the start of the story, but like just walking from their house into town, they actually do grow like age.
Yeah.
Like, because there's some weird like reality altering time dilation bullshit going on in this weird apocalypse that's happening.
That's weird.
But I don't think that's the case. But I understand your confusion because I understand your point of view on this thing.
Yes, and because through 90% of the story, I was in the headspace that it was a kid doing all this. I unfortunately when I was reading descriptors and things first, the first thought that went to my head in regards to everything that happened was that she's just acting out a game that she's playing. Like, her and Olivia are playing hide and go seek zombie apocalypse edition, basically.
Fuck, that would be so fucking cool, though, too.
Like, the intro scene, because the intro scene had the kids making fun of someone, so I took that as, Olivia's just kind of messed up in dark. Or, sorry, Julia's just sort of messed up in dark, so people make fun of her for wanting to play messed up games like this. And then,
so she's she's the niece cultist.
Yes. And then, like, the random screams in the distance are just, like, kids playing in the playground nearby. Gross smells are like dog poop. The woman screaming in the distance is someone who, like, got robbed or something. Louis was just sleeping in his chair behind the desk at the general store. He wasn't dead.
Oh, fuck.
The giant Shogothian creature was her with her dad's head on it was just her dad that showed up.
Just either like dad that's like just over like trying to like find out why she's like gone off or run off, like because he's concerned, or to make it even darker, she actually just has a really abusive dad.
Yeah.
And so sees him as a monster. You know what this is? You're just plotting out a Little Fears game.
A little bit, yeah.
Like Little Fears the RPG, like the tabletop RPG, is 100% like that's how belief works in that game. Is like in the original games, like setting and some of that, the kids, like all the monsters and all the scary shit, like all this weird, seemingly supernatural bullshit that happens around the kids, is just the kids projecting their belief on the mundane world and seeing the real world through this horribly macabre imaginative eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're basically, yeah, it's 100. I'm writing notes down. Yeah. Like I'm going to run this game.
Yeah. And like,
I'll add it to the long list of games that I may or may not ever run that have been concocted from Al Dente Rigor Mortis.
Yep. And then by the end, when she finds Olivia and everything, they're basically just acting it out like they're in a play.
It's just dies in the grocery, or like they pretend to die in the grocery store, and then like the clerk is like, "What are you kids doing back there? Or doing over there?"
Yeah, basically.
And then Julia like shoplifts, like grabs like keeps candy and runs out, leaves Olivia to her fate. God damn it! That's it's man. I don't.
I know. I don't hate
first
it either.
Off,
I kind of wish it did twist like that at the end.
Fuck! Like first off, I'm sorry that you like. I'm not. I guess not sorry because like I didn't do this to you.
No, I did this to me.
But like I'm.
You're sorry that I didn't stay in the lore of it.
No, it's not that. No, like it's not like I'm sorry that you missed for like most of the story. You missed like what was going on, I guess. But at the same time, I really like your interpretation here.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you misinterpreted it.
Yeah.
Because it's really fucking good, man.
Well, I'm glad. It's not that like I missed the things that were happened. And when I was reading it, I'm like, okay, the very first thing that comes into my head is the mundane reason. Damn it. Okay, now what's it actually trying to say? Okay, that I'm reading it. Okay, there's a monster and it has screaming heads. Okay, cool. Like it's not like I'm ignoring the things that are happening and just putting in my headcanon of this. But that is the first thought I had for everything that happened, unfortunately.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm. And that's the end of my notes.
Wow. I think you actually met the bar that Mikey brought up with like
well, that's a first.
His big thing of like his big revelation of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Goddamn.
What a revelation.
I don't know why. I also like how like I was the one that saw it for what it was, and then you guys saw what it could be.
Yeah,
you took maybe even what it should be. But like again, like I liked it at face value.
Yeah.
Well, maybe face value in that like I looked in at it and interpreted it for what it was. I guess maybe. Or what I felt like it should be.
You read the story for what it was, and you didn't theorize any like weird side things that completely changed the layout of the story. You appreciated the story for what it was.
Yeah,
I tried to. My brain. Yeah, my brain's getting fine, weird, man.
We all have weird brains that do things that we don't want to do. So
I mean, the past few recordings, like, my brain has fucked me so bad. I'm not doing too good.
Oh no. Oh,
It's fine.
gamer. Do you have anything else then?
No, it's good.
Then I suppose I guess with that, we'll move on to final thoughts. So yeah, it's got its grammar issues. I'm not even pretend that it doesn't, with the past tense, present tense inconsistencies that I have issues with. And the other ones that we brought up in my fellow co-hosts, grammar inquisitions and such. So I do feel like those need to be like worked out or fixed in some way. But the story it tells, at least for me, at face value, of a survivor in the throes of searching for their lost love amidst a world of Lovecraftian horrors, and when the love turns out to be lost, they push forward and move on. I really fucking enjoyed that. Like, I loved that ending. And not just the ending. I loved the journey from her house, like from the flashback to her house, like wondering what that flashback thing was all about. Was it a flashback? And then realizing it was a flashback about halfway through the story. The journey, the descriptions of the world gone mad and mutated was really fun for me. The writing could be cleaned up, like I brought up. And not everyone's going to like the style of this writing. I'll admit that. But damn it, I'll recommend this one because I really enjoyed it. So, yeah, that's my final thoughts. And my recommendation is that I actually I do recommend it. So, Mikey, the E stands for evil. Your verdict.
Well, let's see. The monster was good with the dogscape vibes, which is very nice.
Yeah.
And then we get the friend Olivia eventually becoming a monster as well.
Mm-hmm.
Although it would be so nice if that ending was her being a monster.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of insinuated, so
it's
like
insinuated if you look that direction. If you stop looking at Left Town and look over to Rightville. Yeah.
So overall, I'll even with the grammar issues that we've brought up, I'm going to give this recommendation.
All right. And gamer.
So for me,
how you doing there, buddy?
Fine. So for me, the story's vibe was unfortunately ruined by my own stupid mind. As soon as I made the connection that she was a kid playing a messed up version of hide and seek, literally everything along the path had mundane reason. I had a mundane reason for it right away. As I said, I did my best to remember to keep focused and try to stay on the story, but the constant pauses to record all the grammar in yellow really messed with the flow of it. And I think that aided or rather made it harder for me to stay in the lore and see for face value because I had to keep pausing. I couldn't just keep reading. That being said,
yeah,
it did give a good feel of a bleak and fucked up world that the characters needed to live in. It kind of felt like playing State of Decay, or to a lesser extent, Remnant from the Ashes, video games, because you're like exploring a post-apocalyptic world and scrounging for supplies and all that. Overall, though, the best I can give it is like a partial recommendation, because like as simple as they are, there's a ton of grammar issues, and like it's one thing if like they're little tiny issues and you just step over a few of them and it's fine, but they were piled up pretty good, and like I was tripping over them a lot, and it added, or rather it made it harder for me to enjoy it because of all the problems that I was finding with it. Granted, they're all tiny, but still. The world itself, I feel, oddly enough, isn't really super unique. Like, it doesn't really do too much in the way of it being unique, rather. Which, like, which is kind of why it lended itself so well to my comparison of it being a couple of like horror educated kids acting out a couple of stories, a couple of like fucked up movies that they saw. Because like this, you've said multiple times that this is from this, that's from that. Everything's a remix. I get it. But again, that just added to my headcanon on that.
And again, I'd like to say, like, I really like your unique take of like of the kids playing pretend.
Yeah, it took me
like,
so
that's
long.
So fucking good,
Like
though.
when the doubts in my mind started sinking in when she's talking about like, she should have wore something more than these like old sweatpants. I'm like, wait, they can't be that old if you're a kid. And she's talking about like how back in high school this happened. I'm like, oh fuck, what did I do?
Yeah. Like I still like the story for like from my perspective, but damn if I don't like your interpretation there. So
yeah, my headcanon at the end of it is still that they're kids playing hide and seek. I wish one way or another there's a twist at the end. Like, it was my brain being like, okay, I see the twist coming. I hope there's going to be a twist. Shit, there's no twist. Like, I guess I kind of set myself up for failure, unfortunately.
Yeah. But also, you know, what'd be really good at the end is like the story. Like it starts off as like that. Like again, like you take your plot of like they're just playing a game and stuff like that. But then by the end, it's actually because like the dad's an abusive father. And they're and Olivia and Julia are playing this game. By the time they get to the gas station, like they're playing out this scenario in pretend, but it's all like kind of pretext to like Olivia convincing Julia to just run away, just like run away from her home and such. And then that's the ending is her like basically like leaving the town, leaving her father, getting out of that situation as a kid and just going on just running away.
Yeah, I kind of like that actually. Like, it's fucked up, but
yeah, it's 100% fucked up. But like it's appropriately dark while also like making the story rather like making it, because I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, like it's not very unique. It's a post-apocalypse with like monster that's very similar to a lot of other things. But I mean, again, like
everything's a remix.
People can do, yeah, everything's a remix. Also, just because something's been done doesn't mean somebody else can't do it again.
For sure.
Yeah. I want to point that out because like I feel like sometimes when you say, not just you, but when people say like, oh, well, I mean, I've seen that before, like that's been done to death. It's like, well, you know what? Maybe some people like having a cozy horror thing, like a horror trope that they like.
Plus, if it's done to
so
death,
like let
it's
people
probably done to death for a reason, because it's good.
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of thing. Like, yeah, people want to use people want to write what they like. So. Yep.
I kind of wish that the monster was like, he was described great. It just it kind of, when she just like ran away, like the description of getting away was I ran away. You know, I kind of wish there was a little bit more of a chase scene.
True, yeah. Like it just she ran away. However, it also adds to your scenario of hinting that like, well, like the monster like, because the description's also kind of like childlike. It's like it's as tall as a man on stilts.
Yes.
And like the size of 100 hogs. Like that's something a child would say, like exaggerate. Like I'm pretty sure I've heard Nice cultists exaggerate similarly on things. But like, and then she just ran away from it. Like, yeah, she just ran away from her dad.
Yeah, for sure.
And like he couldn't outpace her.
Oh, it makes sense in my weird headcanon. I mean, in the lore.
I hate how, like,
in the lore of the story of her being an adult in a screwed up environment, I feel like there should have been a chase scene there. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That would heighten it a little bit more. Because like the threat is pretty minimal, because she's just kind of walking around with nothing around her. Like there's no threats. The one threat she just runs away from. That being said, if she is actually a monster, like what Mikey says, that kind of makes sense why she's not finding people. Because if there are people like survivors in there, they're probably hiding when she's walking by.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and like. My interpretation of like why she had it so easy is it's not because she had it so easy. It's just she's really cautious. Yeah. Like she's an anxious, paranoid, like person. She's been like surviving in this for at least a few months, because like it sort of describes that like this all happened about a few months ago, at least according to like near the end, she like kind of describes that when her dad was one of the first people to start like getting sick and stuff.
The focus on the parents is another reason why I kept thinking kid, because like,
yeah, no, I get
parents like, yeah,
mm-hmm.
My brain, man.
No,
I know
it's cool, man.
I'm glad that the weird headcanon
also
that came out from it is fun and people enjoy it, but I'm still a little annoyed at myself that I couldn't just see it for what it was.
That's fair. Also, I love how this episode we had like the most civil fucking like argument. I think the most energetic yet civil argument we've had on the show about like our differing opinions on the narrative of a story. So I guess long story very short. Partial recommendation.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have anything else to add? Or?
I said my piece.
Okay. So yeah, we'll leave that with 2.5 recommendations then. Could definitely use some work, but a good premise. And again, like if you read deeper into it or read it, if you stop looking at Left Town's playground and look to Right Town, you'll see some really interesting alternative scenarios to what exactly is going on. So
God, who the hell am I? I just realized like I'm the guy who said, "Hey, look at the subtext. Isn't that great?"
Wow.
Who the fuck am I anymore? I feel so good.
You've assimilated into the cultist biomass.
Now. Congrats, you've contracted
the cultist's inflections and influence.
God, I said that I liked
that. It was in me or res even.
God damn it.
Yep.
That's a weird one. A lozenge.
But no, I'm good.
Okay, cool.
So that has been this week's episode. If you like what you heard, or if you didn't, if you also have some alternative views or arguing vectors for us to attack us from, by all means, send us messages in the comment section below, where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr. We're all on Twitter, so you can talk to us there. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W at the end because his name is very long.
And I can actually accept messages now. I realized that I've been living a lie for years.
Yeah,
You've been plugging my Twitter account, and for some reason, my damn account was set up that like only friends could message me.
What the? Oh my god! Okay, well, yeah, and that came out of one of the authors of a previous story we had tackled. DM'd me because they wanted to talk. They wanted to send a message to Gamer. So you can do that now, audience and authors out there that listen to us.
Hell, I didn't.
No,
whatever.
And I'm at Review Cultist on Twitter as well. I guess if you want to talk to me. And also, you can send us emails because we've been getting a number of really fun and like really interesting emails from authors and a few fans of the show. So like, and every time we get one, like I'm super pumped. I send these guys, I either tell them before the show or I send them a screenshot of the email just to like, hey, we got this from one of our listeners or from an author of one of the stories, and it always brightens our day. So, yeah, you can send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, spooky things, SCPs, cryptids. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah. That's our motto now. And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon, look up Al Dente Rigor Mortis, and select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tier with special episodes, early access, extra content. To our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you guys immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always, we very much appreciate it. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, again, thank you all the same, because without your listenership, without your emails and messages that you comment on the show, it would feel like we're just screaming into the void. So it's nice to know that there's something else in the void speaking back.
We're stuck within a Shogothian creature, unable to act on her own free will anymore.
Yeah, silently screaming, or with a face that's silently screaming. And for the authors out there, thank you guys immensely for writing these stories, for posting them out there, and having some and sharing them with the greater internet community. And like, because if you didn't, we really wouldn't have much of a show, because I'd have nothing to read to get me started on all this stuff, and we'd have nothing to talk about when I dragged these guys in to read these creepy stories with me. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigor Mortis. Sleep well.